New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
New Thought Media Network is on the rise. We're looking to grow with you. Do you have technical media experience or perhaps a desire to learn? Are you willing to volunteer your precious time and attention? We share this message to benefit all. If you possess a computer with a camera and a microphone, we will share our knowledge with you. Behind the scenes or being the star, let us bless our one. Contact us at info@ntmedia.org.
New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Live from a secure concrete bunker somewhere in Ohio, New Thought Media Network presents Pastor Michael Mangus with Friday's Fireside Chat, spiritual conversation for today. Here he is from the secret radio room, surrounded by thousands of watts, Pastor Michael Mangus.
Oh, once again, thank you so very much. To everyone across the nation and around the world, it is time once again for another fun-filled, thrill-packed, and always exciting edition of the Fireside Chat here on the New Thought Media Network. I am Pastor Michael Mangus, and I am broadcasting this evening from the secret radio room, surrounded by thousands of watts in a secure concrete bunker somewhere in Akron, Ohio, that only my producer, Diego, and our guest this evening, the Reverend Dr. Charlette Manning, only those two know. Reverend Briz, Reverend Robert, and the rest of them don't know where the super secret bunker is. Oh, thanks for being here with us tonight. We have a great show for you. Please feel free to interact with us by posting your comments below on Facebook. And again, for all of you shy at heart out there, not a big deal. All you need to do is send me an email, pastormichaelmangus@gmail.com, pastormichaelmangus@gmail.com. It's really hard for me to read them while we're on the air, but I do read them after the show. So pastormichaelmangus@gmail.com. So the purpose of our fireside chat here is to talk about contemporary issues from a New Thought perspective. And as I keep saying week after week, I want us all to have a new thought about what is going on around us, not only here in the United States, but also globally. And you do not have to agree with me. Now, Diego plays the disclaimer weekly, professionally produced by my friend Jay Silvers, mostly because of the humor value in it. However, there is a serious part about it in that they are my views, they are my guest views, and not necessarily the networks or even Centers for Spiritual Living. I want us all to deeply think about what is going on in the world and to ask this question: what is my role in bringing about a world that works for everyone? Oh, we do have a wonderful guest this evening. Amazon best-selling author, conference speaker, motivational coach, and active in the Washington, D.C. NAACP. We have on our show this evening my longtime friend, the Reverend Dr. Charlette Manning. She'll be on our show in around 20 to 25 minutes to talk about the news and also her new show here on the New Thought Media Network, the Sunday Evening Masterclass that will premiere in May at 7 p.m. Eastern, 5 Mountain Time. And guess who gets to produce the show? No, not Diego. The producer in training. So hopefully they'll get me out of producing school to do Charlotte's show. StreamYard's interesting. Do any of you broadcast with StreamYard? It's a real interesting program, but I'm learning it. So we'll have Charlette Manning on our show again in around 20 to 25 minutes. We start off with the news from what we need to know from CNN. Former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin was found guilty on Tuesday of all 3 charges against him in the killing of George Floyd last year. So what happens next? Well, Chauvin will be sentenced in 8 weeks. He faces up to 40 years in prison for second-degree murder, up to 25 years for third-degree murder, and up to 10 years for manslaughter. And as the impact of the guilty verdicts in the George Floyd case continue to reverberate, other instances of police violence are coming to the forefront. The funeral was held on Thursday for Daunte Wright, and we'll talk more about that case in just a moment. Sometimes it hits close to home. 2 hours away in Columbus, Ohio, the family of Makia Bryant, a 16-year-old girl, was shot and killed Tuesday by police in Columbus. In Elizabeth City, North Carolina, a man named Andrew Brown Jr. was killed on Wednesday after an encounter with police in which shots were fired. The deputies involved are on administrative leave during the investigation, and the Justice Department begins its probe into the practices of police in Minneapolis, where Floyd was killed, and it is expected to revisit high-profile cases of the years past, like those of Philando Castile and Justin Rusick, who were killed by police in 2016 and 2017. Please listen to the emotion in this article. Daunte Wright's mother says she never imagined that she'd be standing there at his funeral. The families of George Floyd and Philando Castile joined the mourners in Minneapolis on Thursday to bid farewell to Daunte Wright, a black man whose death this month at the hands of police officers prompted renewed cries for justice and accountability. In his eulogy for Wright, whom he called the Prince of Brooklyn Center, Reverend Al Sharpton referred to a resting place, a martyr's bench, where the 20-year-old could take his seat next to other black men killed in encounters with police. Take your seat, Daunte. Tell George Floyd who you are. Take your seat, Daunte. Shake hands with Philando Castile. Take your seat next to Oscar Grant, the civil rights leader said, because there is a special place in heaven for those who shed innocent blood, because God will use you to straighten out the world. Sharpton continued. He said that the world will never be the same because we are going to stand up for situations like this. Wright's death on April 11th in the Minneapolis suburb of Brooklyn Center happened around 10 miles from where the trial in Floyd's death was held. Wright's killing sparked nights of protest in Brooklyn Center and reignited conversations about policing and the use of force. Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar said this. She said, "While this was a historic moment for our country, we cannot confuse accountability for justice, because true justice is not done as long as having expired tags means losing your life during a traffic stop." She added a reference to the stated reason that police initially pulled over Wright. Speakers called for systematic change, including Sharpton, who in delivering Wright's eulogy reprised a role that he played at Floyd's funeral nearly 11 months ago in the same city. He specifically called for the passage of the George Floyd Policing Act, saying, "We are going to make it against the law across this country to keep having funerals for our young princes. God has turned the page in the state of Minnesota, and we're never going back no more." Wright's mother said this: "I felt anger. I felt sadness. I felt loss. I feel helpless. I don't want to feel helpless. I need my son to have justice." Wright's killing is the latest in a string of deaths of Black men during police encounters in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area in the past 5 years, including the shooting of Castile in Falcon Heights in 2016 and the death of Floyd in May. It's too often that traffic stops end up as deadly sentences, a death sentence. We're going to have to make sure that Dante Jr. knows that we stood up for his father. I wanted to play for you now a clip from CNN.
An eye-opening new perspective on policing this morning from a 26-year law enforcement veteran who says he's one of only 4 Black police chiefs in the entire state of Minnesota, the state where George Floyd, Dante Wright, Philando Castile were all killed by police. This is what he tells the Daily Beast, quote, "I'm the chief of police, and when I see a squad car behind me, my heart skips a beat." St. Cloud, Minnesota Police Chief Blair Anderson joins me now. Chief, thanks so much for being with us. I also want to say it was your birthday this week. Happy birthday. 26 years in policing. After all that time, for you to say your heart skips a beat when you see a squad car behind you, why?
I think that's true of most people, but more importantly, it's the reason why I've chosen to do this job from a standpoint of compassion and humanity, and being ever mindful not to ever strip another human being of their dignity. But I think if you ask most people, when they see a squad car behind them, the tension goes up a little bit.
And it's not abstract for you. You had your own case of really alarming treatment at the hands of different police. Explain.
I did. It was a traffic stop. I was actually going to my niece's Sweet 16 birthday party, and a squad car pulled in behind me. And having been on the other end of that transaction, as it were, and for how long he followed me, I knew I was going to get pulled over. What I didn't know was there were going to be 10 or 15 other squads, and that turned into a felony stop where I was taken out at gunpoint and thrown out on the street. And the saddest part about it is when the officer was approaching me, I mentioned that I was a police officer and that my duty weapon was in my back. And his response was, yeah, just shut up. And so I complied and obviously was handcuffed. And it was almost worth it when he pulled my ID out of my pocket and saw that I was a captain with another department. But I had a very serious conversation with that officer's chief.
Yeah, I bet you did. Chief, you did this remarkable interview with the Daily Beast, which caught our eye, and which is why we asked you to join us this morning. And one of the things you discuss in this is the range of emotions that you feel as an officer this week. with the verdict in the Derek Chauvin case and how this has been a difficult week for you. I wonder if you can discuss that with us.
Yeah, like anybody who watched that, it was gut wrenching. I'm outraged. I'm angry, and it's such a tragic thing that did not have to happen. I don't know anybody with any humanity that doesn't feel the same way. I was asked a couple days ago if I ever regretted becoming a police officer, and the answer is unequivocally no. I was also asked if there's some conflict within me, being Black and being part of a system that, historically has treated folks of color very harshly. And again, it made me reflect on why I became a police officer in the first place, right? And I'm that corny guy who became a police officer to make things better, to make people feel safe.
Those were the words of Chief Blair Anderson, Chief of Police, St. Paul, Minnesota. This week, I received communication from the leadership of the Centers for Spiritual Living. And again, the views and opinions expressed are those of my own and my guests. I do not speak for CSL, but I do agree with the policies and the statements and the stand that they've taken, especially around the issues of social justice. It starts out to our communities in the United States. We extend our compassion as many take in the meaning, relief, and complex emotions that follow on the Derek Chauvin trial verdict. As a result of the worldwide protests following George Floyd's death, this moment is significant beyond one nation, touching on the common hope from countries across the globe for accountability and meaningful steps towards healing. And as we grieve with the Floyd family, understanding that a verdict does not take away the pain of their loss. Tuesday's verdict represented a small but significant step in healing the consciousness that has brought us to where we are at. And it points to the work ahead of us to dissolve bias, inequity, and injustice so that our world may indeed work for all of us. We know that love is still the most powerful energy in the universe. As one of the many names of the divine, we invoke divine love to keep our thoughts, actions, and words rooted in our oneness, so that as a human race, we come to embrace a new reality where racial equality and social justice are operating norms in society. We understand that when we stand for the dignity and safety of others, that we ourselves come to a deeper understanding of our own oneness, and we share sacred heritage. We have faith that the consciousness of oneness we are all calling in is what transforms the unjust into the just, separation into unity, and empowers each of us to co-create safe and healthy communities for us all. Blessings from Dr. Edward Viljoen, and also several other people from our leadership core. I wanted to read this week because I still think it has a lot of significance. Reverend Dr. David Alexander from Spiritual Living Atlanta wrote this on his Facebook page last week. He said, "I'll be honest with you, folks. The last few weeks in particular have been difficult. The trial has brought up so much stuff. Then Lieutenant Nazario, 20-year-old Dante, and 13-year-old Adam Toledo from Chicago. So many emotions to process and handle. Parenting is difficult enough. This is just too much. I'm tired today." And the memes he put up was this: having a black son makes you pray in a different way. So speaking up for justice and peace needs to continue in a nonviolent manner. I saw this on my Facebook feed this week. Pray for an end to COVID-19 and for peace in our streets. I would also like to add something here. Put in there justice and the end of racism. I understand that our police force, our law enforcement officers have a really tough job to do. However, don't tell me that the life of Ma'Khia Bryant, a 16-year-old girl from Columbus, Ohio, couldn't have been spared. Yes, I know that she was going to attack that other girl. But where were the tasers in that instance? What if using your firearm as a police officer was the last resort? We as people who claim to be spiritual, who claim to be love, we just ask our police officers to do their job and for our politicians here to implement changes in education, training, and psychological testing. The targeting of especially Black men and women must end now, period. So what can you do? A lot. Ask yourself, what is mine to do here? Continue to demand change in your cities and also your village police departments. I know that we have some challenges here in Akron. They sure have a lot of challenges down in Columbus, also up in Cleveland also. Have your center or church sponsor a seminar on nonviolent communication and de-escalation techniques. We all could use that course, and our churches can provide that. Every church, every place of worship can put on a nonviolent seminar, every single one of them. Continue to eliminate from your consciousness the need for violence and bring forth peace that is in everyone. Remember that idea of oneness that we speak about weekly in our centers? We all have a part to play in bringing about a world that does work for everyone. Well, if you wonder what you stumbled onto this evening, hello there, welcome. This is the Friday Evening Fireside Chat here on the New Thought Media Network. In just a few moments, we'll be introducing my good friend, Amazon best-selling author and longtime advocate, and that is the Reverend Dr. Charlette Manning, and she'll be on in just a few moments. COVID-19 is still with us. Total cases so far, 31,730,950. Cases in the last 7 days, 429,133. And the total number of deaths, including my mother, Etta Mangus, 567,352. So what you need to know, again, from CNN, the U.S. CDC vaccine advisors have given their approval to move forward with the Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine after it was paused over blood clots concerns. India recorded the highest ever daily rise in cases worldwide for the second day in a row, as hospitals in the capital of New Delhi runs out of oxygen. As U.S. health officials race to get more COVID-19 shots into the arms to control the virus, experts now warn that vaccine supplies will likely outstrip demand in the next few weeks. And I know here in Akron that they have discontinued they're not going to hold as often their mass vaccination over at the Summit County Fairgrounds. Folks, we're not out of the woods yet here. What the health officials, the scientists, Dr. Fauci, and others are telling us to do is to get vaccinated unless otherwise advised by your doctor. I'll go into this next week, your guide to avoid COVID-19 at church and other religious services. Again, folks, follow the science. That's all we're saying. Wear a mask, watch your distance, wash your hands, crack open a window. Those are 4 things you still can do. Again, please study the science before deciding not to take the vaccine here. As for me and my house, we are getting vaccinated. And the reason being is because it is safe and highly effective. I'll be getting my second dose on Monday. We're all going to get through this here. We all need to take that deep breath, inhale, exhale. Know that even with the vaccine here, it's going to take a while to achieve a herd immunity. And again, pray with me the outcome that we will go back to somewhat normal. And even though that many New Thought centers are opening up, they are doing so under the advisement of their local state health departments. Being inside and not moving around so much is still not a good idea right now. The all clear has not been given. We need to keep ourselves safe so that we keep others safe. That's the most loving thing that we can do here. All right. Well, welcome. You are in the midst of another exciting edition of the Friday evening Fireside Chat here on the New Thought Media Network. Just a few announcements and then we'll go to a break. Yours truly is parking himself at Summit CSL. For more information, please go to summitcsl.org. There you will find all kinds of information about our wonderful Sunday gathering online at 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific time. Yes, my friends on the West Coast, they say, how in God's good name can you get up that early? So grab your cup of coffee, your tea, your espresso, your chai, and come and join us. We have one of the best services, I believe, in New Thought. And this Sunday, we will continue our April theme of light with our own John Miller, doing both the music and message. So please go on summitcsl.org for more information on how to join the Zoom call. Our service is also simulcast on the Summit Spiritual Center of Akron Facebook page. And our Facebook page also has past broadcasts of the world famous and ever popular Fireside Chat. The one thing I'm asking everyone to do is this. With my show and with anybody else's show here on the New Thought Media Network, please share it to your Facebook page and to other spiritual New Thought groups that you are involved in. And again, if you don't know how to do that, write me at pastormichaelmangus@gmail.com. I'll give you more information on how to do that. I'm currently open for individual practitioner sessions, Sunday speaking, and also I do wonderful ceremonies. Again, pastormichaelmangus@gmail.com for more information. Again, I have 4 pages of announcements. I just don't have time tonight to read them, but go on our website. That's ntmedia.org/schedule, and you'll get more information on our wonderful lineup, which will include the Reverend Dr. Charlette Manning, who will tell us more about her show in just a few moments. But I'm asking everyone to go on our website and please make a generous donation. You really help us to take this powerful, empowering message of New Thought to the world. And we may be the only New Thought center that people encounter. So again, if you go on ntmedia.org/donate, please give a generous donation and consider being a monthly partner with us. When you give here, you give not only to keep us on the air, but you give to change the world. ntmedia.org/donate. And thank you so very much. We're going to take a break right now, and then we'll be right back. This is the Friday Evening Fireside Chat here on the New Thought Media Network.
The views and opinions expressed by Pastor Michael Mangus are generally right. However, they are his own and do not reflect the views and opinions of New Thought Media Network, Centers for Spiritual Living, or any other person living or dead. As they say in the 12-Step Recovery Program, take what you like and leave the rest. Here again is Pastor Michael.
What do you mean they're not right? My guest next is my longtime friend, best-selling Amazon author, life coach, conference speaker, has more degrees than I'll ever have. She is from the Washington, D.C. area. My good friend, the Reverend Dr. Charlette Manning. Welcome this evening to the Friday Evening Fireside Chat. Again, this is your third time.
I know. I kind of think you like me. Hey, Diego, how are you?
I think so.
Yes.
Well, I usually have you on when the stuff hits the fan.
Yes.
And this week it did. And your thoughts about the events of the past week, please.
Well, as I was listening to you go through that, my first thought was, what a sad state of affairs we find ourselves in this 2021, where we are listening to, thinking, and going through things that we were doing in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And we start to wonder, dear Lord, when is this going to end? And I have, I'm such a plethora, a cornucopia of feelings, because first of all, I'm a Black woman. Second of all, I'm a Black mother. Third of all, I have 2 Black adult sons. And, you and I have talked a little bit about this, and on top of everything, I am a forgiveness coach. So, A Course in Miracles teaches us that, in my defenselessness, my safety lies, is what A Course in Miracles says. And basically, I like to use the quote from God in Evan Almighty. Morgan Freeman played God, and he was talking, Evan's wife was saying to him, I wish I had the courage that Evan has to do what it is that he's doing. If you haven't seen the movie, it's one of my favorite movies, Evan Almighty. And Morgan Freeman said, and he's playing the role of God, and he says to her, when you ask God for courage, he will give you things to be courageous. And the same thing here applies. When you ask God for justice, he will give you things to exercise that justice. Now, we've gone through so much as it relates to COVID and the effects that COVID, the pandemic, has had on us as a culture, as a people, as a community, and all of that. But had it not been for COVID, and these are my opinions are mine too, okay? But I believe, had it not been for COVID, America, the world, would not have seen 9 minutes and 29 seconds of a man's knee on the back of another man's neck. That too, you know, I think about as a mother, that 9-year-old child that was standing on that curb watching this, and the 17-year-old child that was videoing this. Had it not been for those two people, this would have been a totally different outcome. And as we've seen, the police report indicated something completely different than what actually happened.
Yes.
You know, as we evolve mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, culturally, we begin to see that what's done in the dark, my mother used to always say, what's done in the dark will come to light. And whereas we have held our breath for over almost a year from the outcome of this, Black mothers. And I remember when my children were 9 years old and they had an incident in school. And my youngest son said to me, "Mom, why do white people hate us so much?" 9 years old, he asked me that question. And how do you respond to something like that? But as a forgiveness coach, I recognize that as Derek Chauvin did something terribly wrong, I would hope that had his thought that if he had it to do over again, that he would have made a different choice. And as we look at the police department, 99.9% of police officers are good people who go into a profession to be of service to their communities.
Absolutely.
However, you don't find it. Just imagine in your community that, and I'm going to suggest, is predominantly white, and all the police officers in your community were Black. Most people would have an issue with that. There's a whole different dynamic there. The assumption is that all Black people are thugs or are drug addicts or drug dealers and so forth, and that all police officers are just waiting. They put on their badges and their guns every night to go out and find some Black person to kill. You know that's not true. I know that's not true. But when we start to paint each other with a broad brush and we start to look at individuals, one person, and we define each one based on that one's, and that the police officer that you just had on there, I so agree with everything he says. If a police car pulls up behind me, my heart skips a beat. And I'm 70 years old. My heart still skips a beat.
26 years on the police force.
Yes.
A captain.
That's
gets
right.
dragged out of his car.
That's right.
Handcuffed.
That's right.
And then when they were searching for his ID, they found out that he was a captain.
Yes.
And then his chief of police got chewed out for.
But
for
that's after the
stop.
fact. That's after the fact. Because what if he popped off at this cop and he said, "Who the hell do you think you are?" He went into his authority bag. That could have turned out to be something totally different. But we teach our children, particularly our Black sons, don't make any quick moves. Don't raise your voice. Don't be arrogant or obstinate. We want you to come home more than we want you to end up in a body bag. So keep your hands on. I mean, we have this conversation as soon as our children, in the Catholic Church, when they're preparing you for your first Holy Communion and you go through your catechism classes, that's what we do with our Black kids.
It's called the talk, by the way.
It is called the talk. That's correct. And we start giving our children the talk when they start interacting with other children, particularly if you live in suburban communities and what have you. So you want to always, if you want to tell your children not to allow something to escalate. If a kid hits you on the playground, you come home and tell your mother and father, don't hit that kid back, because a whole different dynamic can occur. Now, having said all of that, I believe that we are shifting. We are now in a culture of awareness. And I so love and admire these young people. And, you know, the Republican Party is trying to stifle them with over 300 and some bills that are going through now to punish protesters, not the people that on January 6th, but the other protesters, from wanting to go out and exercise their First Amendment right. They want to punish them. But they are defiant in a way, good trouble, like John Lewis, good trouble. And I am so, I tell them, I'm not going to jail, but I will pay your bail, okay? But I'm not going to jail. But when you start to think about that, these children are standing up, and we think about the leadership now with these young people, I see a change a-coming. I see it. I do. And I realize and I recognize it's difficult. You know, the Bible says, you know, when God asked for a volunteer, man raised his hand. I forget why. I don't know if it was, I can't remember which saint or prophet it was, but he raised his hand. He said, send me, God, send me. You know, these opportunities, Derek Chauvin had to raise his hand. George Floyd had to raise his hand. John Lewis had to raise his hand. Dr. King had to raise his hand. Malcolm X had to raise his hand. Fannie Lou Hamer had to raise her hand. I mean, when we look at the things that we have gone through as a people, there are people that have to raise their hand in order to be examples for us to become the two thieves on each side of Jesus. You know, one said, remember me. All right. So we know that sometimes we have to look at things from a different perspective. And whereas I believe, and again, we all held our breath because we did not believe that justice would be served, even though all of the evidence was there. We still could not believe that it would turn out that, and 3 on all 3 counts. And the evidence was overwhelming, but it was just too much for us to hope for and believe. And I think there was a young girl that was interviewed on CNN, and she said just like it was a full circle moment for her, because as she watched George Floyd take his last breath on national television, she was able to exhale that breath when that verdict was read. So it is a cause and effect. That's the world that we live in. And what you put out, you're going to get back. And there has to be examples through that.
And I think that we saw that also, the change of culture among the police officers, usually, again, when things
that
like
blue
this
code,
happened in the past,
right. That's
the blue
right.
code, no
that
matter
blue
who,
code, that's right.
or
that's right.
What's your race as
That's
a police
right.
officer,
That's right.
you
That's
be
right.
quiet. But again, what we saw in this case, we saw it crumble. If you're wondering what you've stumbled onto again this evening, hello there. This is the Friday evening Fireside Chat here on the New Thought Media Network. It is my pleasure and great honor to have my good friend, the Reverend Dr. Charlette Manning, on. And we're talking about the news of the week and about race relations. So what can we do here, Charlette, to end this root cause of racism in our policing?
Well, you know, I have always been an advocate. My grandparents fought for the right to vote in Alexandria, Virginia. I grew up in Alexandria, Virginia, when there were colored and white bathrooms. I grew up in Alexandria, Virginia, when there were colored and white water fountains. This is memory for me, not history. This is memory. I remember this. I remember when Black people couldn't try shoes on in a shoe store. They would outline your foot, and then they would go back and get a shoe you could buy. And once you bought the shoes, okay, you couldn't bring them back. If you put them on your foot, you couldn't bring them back. So I remember these things. And I have had people say to me, because history has not been written accurately, but our stories somehow have still been told. Now, I've had white people ask me on many occasions, and as you know, you and I have been close friends for 20 years. But I have had white friends of mine ask me, what can I do? And I tell them as lovingly as I can, it's not my responsibility to teach you about Black people. It's not my responsibility. In anything that you want to accomplish, you have to be willing to study. You have to be willing to explore the same things that we've had to do. Me becoming a writer, I could sit down and just start writing stuff, but there's no flow or rhythm or any of that kind. How do I learn to be a better writer? And that's by research, learning, taking classes, talking to people. There is, a plethora of Black history available for understanding. It took 200 years, I might add, for them to, not 200 years, I'm sorry, over almost 100 years to build this African American History Museum and culture in Washington, D.C., which, again, this is just how God shows up, which is built on the last Smithsonian Institute on the corner of 14th and Constitution Avenue. So the 14th Amendment of the Constitution is now where the African American History Museum and Culture now sits in Washington, D.C. And they show you from the ground up how Black people are the only race of people that came to this country against their will and with a job and no green card in the belly of a ship. So when we start to think about history, you have to know and understand that millions of dollars are spent every year on Ancestry.com and Legacy.com, and all of these, where all races of people want to know where they came from, who their ancestors were. You got Finding Your Roots on the PBS network, where people trace back hundreds of years where they came from. But we're supposed to get over it. When are you going to get over racism? When are you going to get over slavery? How many times have we heard that? So it is an educational process that is ongoing. Now, having a conversation about race and telling someone what can they do are two different things. You and I have had many conversations around race. I haven't tried to teach you anything. I've only shared my experience with you.
And that I was kind of called to the carpet when I took a
Yeah.
graduate school course on inclusion, that I really had to own up. See, my mistaken belief, and I think this is the mistaken belief of a lot of people, especially in New Thought churches, in Unity and also Science of Mind, is that we believe that we're all on the same equal playing field. Okay. And that is not the truth. All right. So I agree with you. There's plenty of books out there about, and again, my teacher recommended a few of them. She said, read these and get back to me. And so I think I got an A+ in that class, by the way, but I had to really own up to the fact that my viewpoint was mistaken. And that's tough to do. However, for all of us to progress, we're all going to need to do that. I mean, I'll tell you that 11 more minutes here.
I know. Time
so-
goes by so quickly.
So you've written several books on forgiveness. You're known as a forgiveness coach. So how can we use the powerful tool of forgiveness to heal ourselves and to heal our world?
Well, when we look at the word sin, A Course in Miracles teaches us that sin is an archery term that means missing the mark. Jesus said, "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone." And so we have to recognize that missing the mark is not, it's something that we all struggle with. A Course in Miracles also says, forgive and forgive quickly. And the quicker that we can forgive, the less impact, egoic, dysfunctional impact it can have on our memory systems, because everything that we have, there's a file that it's looking for that it can relate to. So when someone does something, that is mean, or something that is racist or whatever, it takes me right back to that shoe store where I can't try on a shoe. That's where the memory is in my mind. So it takes me back to that emotional feeling, that hurt, that detachment, that I'm not worthy to even try on shoes, you see. So, but when we forgive, and we forgive quickly, and we have to learn how to do that, because ignorance is bliss. It really and truly is. And when you can say, that's someone else's opinion about me, that's not the truth. And opinions and beliefs are not necessarily the truth. So when I know who I am, and I worked for Marianne Williamson for 7 years. And in the whole 7 years I was with Marianne, the one profound thing she said to me that I have taken with me, and I met you as a result of working for Marianne. Marianne said to me, when racism is no longer an issue for you, the racist will stop showing up. Now, that doesn't mean that racism will cease to exist, but the racist will stop showing up in my life. When lack is no longer an issue for you, lack will stop showing up in your life. When hopelessness is no longer an issue for you, hopelessness will stop showing up in your life. So when you can see the light of God around everyone, the love of God, the power of God, the presence of God, when you can see all of those things in someone else, Mother Teresa said, they asked her, how can you be with all of these lepers and these contagious people? Aren't you afraid you're going to give this? She said, because every time I look at them, I see my beloved. And Jesus, well, she sees the face of Jesus. That's a miracle right there. So when I can see in Derek Chauvin, in his defenselessness, I can see that he too is a child of God. Now, he deserves to be punished for what he's done, but it's not up to me to carry the weight of that punishment within my own self. You understand what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. I think that that's something that we talked about this week in our Wednesday evening class that I had with Tom Senar, and also at my Holmes Institute class this week. That, again, the whole idea of love and forgiveness. Can we see love and forgiveness for Mr. Chauvin? Can we see that for him also? So, and also, can we forgive also?
And we have to. That's the thing. And I mean, we have to fake it till we make it. But we have to, because we cannot have the kingdom. We cannot experience the kingdom on earth as it is in heaven until we are able to do that. And that's what I talk about. And I know we're short, but just the whole principle behind the word forgive. F is face your fears. Yes, he did a bad thing. He's got to pay for that, not me. Organize your thinking for everything like a boomerang. What you throw out, you're going to get back. So you remember, do you want to experience that? R is release and let the crap go already. You can't focus on all of this. I have to turn off the news because it will literally make you sick. R, release that stuff. G, be grateful. I am 70 years old. I'm healthy. I'm happy. I have a life that I love. I have friends that I love. Be grateful for that. Listen to your intuition. I is intuition, the God, light of God that is within you. Listen to that, not that out there. Value. V is value those things, those little things in life. Take a walk in the morning. Go out and see the birds going to and fro, building their nests. Do they say, you hear birds saying, well, honey, we need to put an addition on the bird's nest before those eggs come? No, you don't see that. They're just going about doing what they need to do. And E is about energy. The more you receive, the lighter you become, the more elevated you are, and nowhere evil cannot dwell in a protein-enriched environment.
So remember that as you remember that Charlette Manning is going to have, well, she has her book out.
There it is. That's
but
my
also
book.
The Sunday evening masterclass, which will be coming up in May.
I'm so excited.
On the New Thought Media Network, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Mountain Time. We have 30 seconds. Tell us about what they can expect on the show.
Well, we're going to be talking about all sorts of things. And, forgiveness is the work that I do. But I want to talk about how we can use spiritual principles in our day-to-day lives, how we can lift our consciousness to the level of the miraculous. Jesus said, greater things will we do. We're going to learn how to cast out those dispersions and to return to the love that we are, being the things that God would create us to be, and particularly living the life of your dreams. Steve Harvey said, real quick, Steve Harvey said, your job is what you paid for. Your gift is what you're made for. And God made you present. He gave you a present and a purpose. So we are going to talk about how to expand, go deep, do a deep dive into your consciousness and find out who, what, and where you are.
The Sunday evening masterclass, which will be premiering here in May, here on the New Thought Media Network. Thank you again, my dear friend. Thank you again for being on the program this evening, for being a peacemaker, and for explaining a lot. And so if you'd like more information about Reverend Dr. Charlette Manning, if you go to her website, drcharlettemanning.com, more information there. And also, if you'd like more information about the book, Forgive, it's on Amazon. Great read. Please get it. You can download it from Kindle. Please do so. Lots of good stuff. And you'll learn a lot more about forgiveness during the Sunday evening masterclass. Reverend Dr. Charlette Manning, my good friend, thank you so very much for being on the program.
Thank you for doing what you do, because without the conversation, we would stay in ignorance and in the darkness. So thank you too for what you do. And thank you, Diego, for being there for both of us.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Reverend Dr. Charlette Manning.
I love you.
Yeah, he's in the background. He gave you a big kiss too.
Okay.
So, all right. Thank you so very much. That
God
was
bless.
the Reverend Dr. Charlette Manning from Washington, D.C. We're so grateful to have her on the show. My time flies when you're having fun. Remember that we have all kinds of shows here on the New Thought Media Network. Please go to our website, ntmedia.org. Go on the schedule page. There are tons of programs. We're coming out with new programs each and every week. And again, they are for your benefit. Please take advantage of it, ntmedia.org. And if you could push the donate button, that would be greatly appreciated. Again, when you partner with us here at New Thought Media, what happens is that you get the gift of giving, which in and of itself is a wonderful gift, but you also get the great gift of changing the world one life at a time by our programming. ntmedia.org/donate. Please do so. Please go on that site and please give a generous donation and also consider being a monthly partner with us too. Well, time flies when you're having fun. Time for me to get out of here. On behalf of all of us, to all of you, this is Pastor Michael Mangus. Have a great week.
Thanks for joining us this evening for Friday's Fireside Chat with Pastor Michael Mangus. Join us again next week at 8 Eastern, 6 Mountain for more spiritual conversations for today. For more information and replays of past shows, please visit the New Thought Radio and Media Network's Facebook page. Until next week, may God bless you richly and abundantly.